know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna... Oh, hey! I've got a bit of an issue going on here. About 30 minutes ago, I was super bored, so I decided to call Nintendo about Skyward Sword 2. Then shortly after, I took a nap, but when I woke up, everything in my room was gone. Like, look around, there's nothing. I think all my stuff's been repossessed because I might have filed my taxes incorrectly. They asked if I had any tax write-offs, so I wrote Street Fighter 6, but if that's the reason why... that's f***ed up! And you wanna know what else is f***ed up? This. I love video games, and one of the genres that fall into that category are fighting games. I mean, Street Fighter alone is my most favorite fighting game series of all time, and don't even get me started on other fighting games like Tekken, Fatal Fury, Dead or Alive, or Virtua Fighter. Oh wait, I'm sorry, Fighters Mega Mix. Anyone know what this game is? Yeah, exactly, me neither, but it's a fighting game, so I love it. I'm definitely what most would consider a casual fighting game player, as I've never really cared much for the competitive scene for a lot of these games, or rather, I've never cared enough to get into it myself. In fact, the most I've ever done was compete in a local Smash Bros. Brawl tournament at GameStop in 2010. Needless to say, I play fighting games for fun. Of course, I like to win whenever I play against people, but I don't really care enough to take it super seriously, which in my opinion is pretty good. These games are meant for fun, not killing someone because they got a perfect KO on you. But he spammed! They have multiple layers. Obviously, you have the different gameplay styles and mechanics, the settings and locations, the music, and most importantly, the characters. I'm not going to go on a whole tangent about how important characters are in fictional media, as to me, that's kind of the same thing as saying how a book is important because it has a story. Like, that's kind of obvious. No, instead I want to focus on fighting game characters, more specifically fighting game DLC characters, as I think they've been doing some real f***y shit lately with some of these games, and I want to address some of it. So for starters, what is a fighting game character? That's like asking what is a toilet, and I still don't get it. They're the glue that holds the fighting game genre together. Without them, you have nothing but a closet. It's empty in here. And I can already hear people asking, Niko, that's all fine and dandy, but what does this have to do with DLC characters? And I'm glad you asked. We'll get there, yes we will, but I feel it's best to go over some obvious points to get a better understanding of my perspective now. So back in the day, fighting game rosters were relatively small compared to how they are nowadays. For example, the first ever Street Fighter game technically had 2 playable characters, but it was really just one. Ryu and Ken you could play as both via the multiplayer, which, in their defense, this game did come out in 1987 and didn't really feel as established as it is today. That all changed, however, in 1991 with the release of Street Fighter 2, having a grand total of 8 characters starting out with 4 additional unlockable ones, and as the series grew and more games came out, so too did the roster. Of course, not every character in Street Fighter history has been playable in every single game, but the ones that were seemed relatively consistent throughout their release cycle. For instance, most of the Super Street Fighter 2 cast have been playable in almost every game after that one, with the exceptions being the Street Fighter 3 series and kind of the beginning lifespan of Street Fighter 5. Characters like Gaio, Dhalsim, E Honda, Zangief, Blanca, Cammy, Chun-Li, Ryu and Ken obviously, M. Bison, Vega, Sagat, Balrog, and we can't forget about Akuma. Now notice how I said kind of, because this is where the f***y shit comes into play. They put Akuma behind a paywall! As a matter of fact, not even just Akuma. They put Blanca, Sagat, E Honda, and Balrog behind one. Now granted, you can unlock them by just playing the game. No wait, I'm sorry. Purchase them by just playing the game, but that's going to require you to play a lot of the game, as they have their own in-game currency system, and they're still doing the same thing with Street Fighter 6. Look, I'm not against these games having DLC. In fact, I welcome it if they want to do something really cool, like characters we haven't seen in years, or entirely new characters. But making pretty prominent characters that have been in damn near every single game for literal years a paid DLC character really rubs me the wrong way, because it seems like you're trying to put these characters on a way higher pedestal than I think they should be on. In no universe, in my opinion, should a character as recognizable and established as Akuma, for instance, be a paid DLC character in any Street Fighter game, especially when you factor in that he's been playable since like 1994. Look, I don't care if Street Fighter 6 is a new game, that's just f***ed up. And it doesn't even stop with just Street Fighter. It seems like every fighting game, if not every game, is just going down that path. Ever wanted to play as Eddie Gordo, Heihachi, and Anna Williams in Tekken 8? Well, get ready to spend real money. Also, ever wanted to play as the older cast in their classic costumes? Well, that's gonna cost you even more money because we're the Tekken team and we don't care about our audience. Like, I can't be the only one that feels a little disrespected by this, right? Like, it's one thing to charge for characters that should have already been in the game, even though they shouldn't be doing it, they've done it. And as stupid as I am, I spent $250 on this. I really don't feel comfortable supporting this type of content, especially when it's something as little as in-game costumes that have already been in the series for over a decade for free, mind you, and that'd probably be nothing to just, put in the game. Like, it's already bad enough we have to spend full price for Tekken 8. The least you could do is give us these costumes and stuff for free, right? Of course not. This is Bandai Namco we're talking about here. They'll sell us this with a straight face. I remember way back when I had a nice little chat with myself about DLC characters I'd like to see in Street Fighter 6, and I noticed something while looking back at that conversation. Most of the characters on that list aren't as consistently put in games as much as the World Warriors are from Street Fighter 2. Sure, you can argue that some Street Fighter 3 characters were in Super Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5, but I don't really feel like that's much of an argument considering that they were nowhere to be seen in the original release of Street Fighter 4, and even then, with Street Fighter 5, they were later added as DLC. What about Fatal Fury? Oh my god! No, wait a minute, this one actually isn't as bad. So Fatal Fury is actually doing something different here. Instead of selling us the game and making us have to pay for the DLC characters later, at least with the first season pass, they're selling it alongside the game for $60, thus calling it the Special Edition, which I'll say this, that's kinda cool considering it's not just a standalone game with additional costs. But Andy Bogart and Joe Higashi are being labeled as DLC characters now, and I don't want to be that guy, but I'm gonna be that guy. They both made up 98% of the character roster in the very first Fatal Fury game, with Terry making up that last 2%, and as a matter of fact, thanks to my 2 copies of the Fatal Fury Battle Archive for the PlayStation 2, I can see that they're playable in literally every single game in these collections. But what about other games like the King of Fighters? Well, they're playable in those too. It's like there's a part of me that's like, this is good, this is how other fighting games should be handling older characters, provided they want to sell them as DLC, but then there's a larger part of me that's just like, why? Why should we have to A, wait for these long-time characters and content that should already be in the game at launch, or B, pay additional costs for these long-time characters and content that have been in these different series for well over 10 years, thus making them more established, recognizable, and in a lot of cases, iconic. I'm of the opinion that if you're going to make a new anything from a long-running series, either have the long-time content that should already be there from the get-go in there at the final release, or don't have them in at all and use that time to focus on new original concepts and ideas. And that especially goes for fighting games, because at this point, I'm getting really tired of feeling like these companies and studios are manipulating their fans. It's either with nostalgia or just straight up taking away pieces of content or very popular characters to later sell for additional cost, as they know a lot of people are going to buy it because, let's be honest here, a lot of people either don't have high enough standards, are relatively new to the series so they don't realize that long-time content being sold is in fact long-time content being sold, or are just stupid. I'm looking at me here. I don't want to be that guy that feels hopeless about the future of fighting games or anything, but if the only ways I can purchase specific characters is by paying for overpriced in-game currency or purchasing a character pass that costs damn near as much as the game itself, which in my opinion shouldn't cost that much considering a lot of those characters aren't new, then let's just say I'm not really seeing any light at the end of the tunnel. Because Street Fighter 6 is the only game that does this. Alright, I just got off the phone with the IRS and my stuff's being sent back to me as we speak. The only issue I'm having now is that I need a proper way of making money so I can do my taxes next year. Otherwise, I'm going to wake up with my knees broken. And I like my knees. What can I do to make some quick money? I can help you out with that. I need a way that doesn't involve getting my knees broken and f***ed in the shower for 12 hours. Become a scalper. That was for earlier. And talking about scalping. What? Never seen anyone die before? I think I'm going back to school.